Hey everybody, I've been using my KEMPER stage for the better part of a year now and transitioned from using the head unit. I wanted to create a quick video diving through everything you need to know to get started with the stage. Okay everybody, so I just turned on my profiler, which if you don't know where that button is, it's just this right here. Now we've got our foot switches down at the bottom row, which this is what's going to allow us to swap between different presets or performances and engage what's called MORPH mode. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. This top rung is going to be where you'll engage or disengage all of your individual stomps and effects blocks. And then this up down bank over here is where you're going to be able to go in and go up and down different presets or performances. And then this is probably going to be the most important part about learning any of the KEMPER interfaces. And this is going to visually represent your signal chain. So over here on the left, we've got our pre-stack or pre-amplifier. In the middle, we've got our amp and our cabinet. And then everything to the right of that is going to be post, amp, and cabinet. And you can think of this very similar like you would a pedal board going into an amp and then your wet effects going through the effect loop of an amp. Right up top, we've got our tuner and then our looper. Now, from here, let's go ahead and let's dive into adjusting between our different modes. Now to start, we've got our browser and we have our perform mode, which are probably going to be the two basic modes that you need to learn. Browser mode is where you're going to be able to go and look between individual profiles and adjust one profile at a time. The performance mode is typically what's going to be used when you are playing live. And this is a really fantastic mode that allows you to have one preset, but 5 different profiles all individually dialed for this performance. So in this case, if I wanted to have a really clean sound here, I can engage that. And in my 4 bank, I can go into a huge ripping solo and have a lot of different effects engaged all at once. We'll talk more about that later. Now diving back into my browser mode, I've got a profile here from AmPWorks, which if you've never heard of them, they are phenomenal. They've got some of the best straight out of the box profiles that I've ever heard. Of course, there are some other really fantastic profilers out there, but they're one that I really like. There is a discount in the description for 20% off if you want to purchase some of their profiles. Now from here, what we can see with our stage is that we've got our EQ that's present right here, and then we've got our signal chain, which is over here, our gain, and then our master volume. If we want to be able to go in and browse between different profiles, this is where we simply use the browse knob and we're able to see all the profiles within our specific unit. If we want to go up and down huge different banks, we can see here over on the left where we can start to apply a filter either by all rigs, our favorites, non-favorites, so on and so forth. And then similarly, if we use this button right up top here, this is what's going to allow us to filter by the name of the profile, the author, the date, cabinet, gain, etc. Now, if we want to start making adjustments to this specific profile, this is where we will engage these different blocks over here. Now, in my personal recommendation, anytime you ever have a profile, you start in the amplifier section, page over until you get to the definition. And this is what's going to help you control the overall definition of this profile based off your guitar's pickups. I've got more on that in this video right here, which you can check out. And the general rule of thumb when it comes to definition is just simply that more definition is typically what's required with humbuckers versus less definition is what's required with single coils. And as we page along here, everything that we are seeing are the different parameters that we can edit within the amplifier itself. Clarity is one that I typically recommend adjusting as well, which adjusts how your pickups respond to the gain within the middle frequencies for that profile. Next, we get into our EQ for the KEMPER, which is going to be different than a traditional EQ from a normal amp. In this case, I typically don't recommend making huge sweeping adjustments to the EQ. And this is typically where I start from right to left and then go in and make small adjustments. Typically, if you were adjusting a profile, I typically recommend around 2 to 3 clicks is enough to make a pretty big difference with the overall EQ. Now, as we get over one more page, this is where we're going to be able to see our amp model. And in this case, this is where we introduce liquid profiling, which is a newer feature that KEMPER, which allows you to take the EQ of popular amps and have your profile respond like a real amp. So in this case, case, KEMPER generic is going to be kind of the flagship one that it's on. But if you want to go in and have more of a Fender twin and have that type of EQ settings, now you'll notice that there is a gain, there's a bright cap, and if we move over, we only have treble, middle, and bass for our EQ settings. And this can be the same for other liquid profiles as well. If you want the settings of a Vox AC30, you would go in and find more of that AC30 kind of sound, and you would see those options for your EQ. I typically just leave it under the KEMPER generic because I honestly like the way that the EQ sounds on the KEMPER. Now, if we hit this little page back button up top, this takes us to our profile, and we can quickly and easily see the adjustments that we have made to our settings here. Now, if I want to go in and adjust my signal chain or add or adjust the individual effects within the stage, I can. All I have to do is just click and hold on that particular unit, and I typically have a compressor at the start of my signal chain. If I click on this next block here for B, I have a KEMPER drive. If I want to engage that, I just simply click on it. If I want to go back, just hit the back button, and we will see now that we have that red block and the blue one enabled. That means both of my effects are engaged. If I want to go in and make adjustments to this individual drive, it's going to be very similar to what we just did with our amp. We hold down block B, and then we can go in and adjust our different settings. If I want to adjust block C, just simply click on it, engage it to be on, and you're going to see your available parameters to edit right there. Same thing with our delays and our reverbs. If I simply click and hold back here, we're going to be able to see parameters that I can adjust, and you're also going to see page 1 of 4, which just means that I can go in and tab between 4 different pages. So if I use this page button right here, I'm able to see all of the parameters available for this specific reverb. Now, one question that I often get from people that are new to the KEMPER is, can you only put modulation, delay, and reverb right here? And the answer is no. You can put those anywhere that you want, but that is typically where a lot of people put them in their signal chain. In this case, if you wanted to have a delay before your amplifier, you can absolutely do that. And if you want a drive after your amplifier and cabinet, you can do that as well. Now, if I get the profile in a place that I like it, this is typically where then we will store that rig. And we're going to get this option to go in and either replace what we have, store as, which allows us to keep the original but save a new profile, or rename this existing one. In this case, if I hit replace, now when I go and I toggle between different profiles and I come back to that same one, we're going to have all of those same settings that I had dialed in. Similarly, if we go in and we click on the rig button, this is where we're going to be able to adjust a lot of different things for this specific rig. In this case, the page that I'm on now allows me to adjust where my effects are mapped to the foot switches here. In this case, if I wanted to change how this was laid out, let's say I don't want block C assigned to foot switch number 3, all I have to do is click both at the same time, and now you'll notice up here that's been cleared. There's also this clear button here, and if I want to go in and re-add that, I just simply click C and stomp 3 at the same time. And now you'll notice when I click on and off that foot switch, I'm going to be able to engage or disengage that specific effect. Moving over here, this is where we can go in and we can also set our MORPH settings, which I'll talk about shortly, and we can adjust finer details within this specific rig. If you do want to go in and save this as a favorite, we can simply hit favorite there. And now what that means is when I go back, I filter my rigs by favorites. It's only going to show me my favorite profiles when I start to browse. Now, to go in and talk through what the MORPH setting is with the KEMPER. Let's say that I want to have my delay and my reverb engaged for this specific preset, but in setting 1, I want to have it at 36% or 37% mix, and then I want to engage and have more mix and more overall feedback. In this case, what I can do is I can click on this MORPH setting here, and go in and dial in this specific reverb or this delay based off what I want for this specific preset. And now what you'll notice is when I click this button on and off, it is going to slowly transition the mix and the feedback or those morphed parameters for that specific effect. What this means for you is that you can have one preset as kind of your base, and then if you want something that's more wet or more overdriven and saturated, you can use the morph setting to adjust those parameters. Now you may be wondering, are there any things that you can't use the morph for? And in terms of your effects, there is not. If you want to adjust the parameters of your compressor, your overdrive, or any of your other wet effects, you can do that with the morph setting. Okay, so now I want to go in and I want to talk through the performance mode, which is what I use about 90% of the time. And in this case, this is what's going to allow me to have one performance, but 5 different profiles or presets baked into that one performance. So what this practically looks like is I have my Arshel pack here from Tone Junkies, which is amazing. It's probably one of my all-time favorite performances. And as we can see here, there are 5 different banks that I can go between. Right here is my clean, and then I have a verse, a chorus, solo, and a swell tone. If I want to go in and quickly engage or swap between amps or different effects, I can go from my verse to my lead tone, which engages a different amp, different wet effects, and more overall gain. And this can be really great if you ever play live and want to be able to quickly adjust between different sounds and engage multiple effects all at once. In this case, when we are in performance mode and I choose to go up and down on my different brows here, I'm going to be changing this specific amp for this specific performance. And instead, how we navigate is we go by type, and type is going to allow me to go up and down my different performances. Or, of course, I can use the banking right here. In this case, if I want to adjust anything for the solo preset within this performance, I can go in and make those adjustments here. If I want to adjust my amplifier, we go through the same editing techniques that we did on the browser section. Now, one thing to call out, because I have made this mistake a million times, is if you are going to go in and make any sort of adjustments to this performance, be sure to hit store. Because if you go in and let's say you want to go in and change your delay or your reverb, the moment you toggle off and go to your clean or your verse, it will revert back to those previously saved settings. Or in this case, if you go up and down on different banks, it will erase all of the work that you have done for this specific performance. And in the bottom right here, we're going to have our tap tempo, which is going to control the BPMs for the entire performance. So if I tap something in here, it will now control the time-based effects for every single one of my different presets down here. Now quickly, if we want to talk through the looper, this is where we can click into our looper. Currently shows empty. And then this is where we've got our different icons down here, which will indicate if we want to start or stop our loop. If we hold this down for 3 seconds, it will delete it, halftime, and so on and so forth. Now, probably the last thing to call out for the stage and getting started is our system icon here in the top left. And this is going to be where all of your global parameters are at. In this case, if I go back, there are 12 different pages to navigate through. If I want to adjust the overall contrast, edit the owner, maybe go in and initiate a factory reset, this is where I would do that. And we can go in and tab through this and see our different LED icons, how bright they are, if we want to go in and adjust our looper level, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of information here, and honestly, the Kemper is one of those units that requires a little bit of learning, especially to understand some of the terminology within these amp menus. With that said, I've got this video right here that helps kind of get you through some of the tips and tricks you need to know to get started with the Kemper. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye.